So today's case is going to be a special one. By that, I mean I'm going back. Way back. Back to the Victorian Era. We will be going back to 1867, just a couple years after the American Civil War ended. But this case is interesting, as there usually aren't a lot of details of murders from back then. It wouldn't be surprising. Many murders from back then are now lost in time, but this one is fairly well known. This is about the murder of Fanny Adams, a girl from the UK who died in a very brutal way. I have read some bad murders before, but this one shocked me. Because this case happened so long ago, there aren't many photos of Fanny, or anything else really involved. Because of that, I'll be doing some AI photos and some old unrelated videos. So let's get into DeLorean and go back to 1867. This is the murder of sweet Fanny Adams. Fanny Adams was born on April 30th, 1859 to George and Harriet Adams. She had 5 siblings. She was the 4th born in the family. She lived in Tannhouse Lane, Alton, Hampshire, a small community in the UK. George was a bricklayer. The town itself, however, was a brewery town, and stayed like that for several decades. While her family wasn't rich, she wasn't poor either. Her family had a small house and food on the table, so she was happy. Fanny was described as tall, comely, and intelligent. She was described as a cheerful girl by everyone, someone who was lively and could make you smile. She looked older than 8, though she was still a child in the end. She was best friends with a girl named Minnie Warner, who was also her age. Fanny was just an average kid. She liked to play, be with her family, and do anything else kids from that time. However, this would all change on August 24th, 1867. August 24th, 1867, started out normally. Harriet was taking care of the kids, while George played cricket with some friends. Fanny, Minnie, and Fanny's little sister, Lizzie, decided to go play. Harriet saw no reason to not let them go. After all, Alton was a safe town. They decided to go play at a place called Flood Meadows. It was a place that they played often. It's a recreational area, located near the center of town. It has woodlands, grasslands, and much more. It's often seen as a hidden gem. It's still in Alton today. As the girls went to the area, a man approached them. He was wearing a black frock coat, light waistcoat, and trousers. The girls recognized this man from church. He was Frederick Baker, a 29-year-old solicitor's clerk, who recently moved to town. While they didn't really know him too well, they assumed he was a nice guy. The girls could tell he was drunk by the way he was acting. Baker offered Minnie and Lizzie a 3 halfpence if they would go and play somewhere and buy some candy. He then offered Fanny a halfpenny if she would follow him to the Hollow, which is a road that leads to the village of Shalden. She took the money, but refused to go with him. So Baker then grabbed her and ran off, leaving the girls. That would be the last time anyone would see Fanny alive. This all happened around 1:30. The 2 girls would play for around 3 hours before heading home. Now, we should ask ourselves, why didn't Minnie and Lizzie do something? Why didn't they tell someone a man took Fanny or screamed for help? Why didn't Fanny? This was 1867. Stranger danger wasn't as much as a thing back then. At least not in the way it does today. However, there are a few tales of this story. One is the girls played until 5 o'clock, and then they told a neighbor, Mrs. Garner, what happened. Other stories say, however, that the girls told Minnie's mom right after the abduction. Her mom was a nurse, and she was very concerned about Fanny. who then told Mrs. Garner and then told Harriet. Whatever the case, Fanny was missing for over 3 hours when Harriet found out. The first 3 hours for child abductions are the most important. About 76% of murdered children were killed within the first 3 hours of their abduction. The chances of surviving after 24 hours, 48, 72, drop more and more. By then, they are more likely dead or have been trafficked. This is why Amber Alerts are critical. But in 1867, Amber Alerts were more than 130 years away. Of course, there was no DNA testing too. Heck, people didn't even know what DNA was back then. When Harriet was told what happened, she became really worried, and she and Mrs. Warner ran to the spot Fanny was last seen at. When they got there, they ran to Baker. This was supposedly their conversation. Harriet demanded to know where Fanny was, but Baker denied any involvement, other than giving her money for candy. Again, 1867. Kids were not warned to take candy from strangers back then. The two women seemed to accept it and left. By dinner, a search party was formed. They looked around for her, but they couldn't find her. But they didn't have to wait long. A man named Thomas Gates went to a hop garden so he could tend his crop. There, he found a gruesome discovery. This is where the video gets dark. There, he found the decapitated head of Fanny Adams. It was placed on 2 hop poles. That wasn't all though. Other body parts were also lying around. She had been hacked to bits. Even her internal organs were hanging out or lying around. It was one of the most gruesome scenes people ever saw. Even the police were horrified. They couldn't believe anyone would do this to a person, let alone a child. Harriet was devastated, and George was enraged. He went home and grabbed his shotgun with the intent of killing Baker. However, neighbors were able to get the weapon off him and cool him down and comfort him. He had been playing cricket before he found out. Of course, with no phone back then, he couldn't be informed she was missing. When the party was formed, Harriet only knew for about an hour and a half. The family was depressed by all this. Baker was arrested at his work the next day. Mrs. Warner said this was the same man who the girls were with and where Fanny was last seen. Baker claimed his innocence. However, evidence started to come out. Baker had blood on his clothes. He also had blood on a knife. This alone wasn't enough, but more came. Witnesses said they saw Baker leave his office around 1 o'clock. He came back around 3:25 and then left again around 5:30. That was around the same time Harriet and Mrs. Warner saw him. Co-workers also said he made creepy comments. One being, "It would be really awkward for me if the child is murdered." Another one was, "I can go as a butcher when talking about a new job." A blood-stained rock with hair and skin was also found by a man named William Walker. But the biggest evidence was his diary. It said, "Killed a young girl. It was fine and hot." A little girl also claimed to have seen Baker wash blood off his clothes in the pond. Even before the trial, Baker was arrested and charged with Fanny's murder. He was held at Alton Town Hall. The police actually had to guard him. There were many people there who wanted a noose around his neck right there and then. Whenever he was taken somewhere, crowds of people were trying to kill him. The trial started on December 5th. Baker and his defense team claimed he was innocent due to a history of family mental illness. This included his father abusing his kids and even wanting to kill them, his sister dying from brain fever, a cousin going to an insane asylum several times, and attempting to take his own life after a love affair. Many testified against him, claiming he was the one, but the defense team questioned her and said the knives found were too small to chop her apart. But it was clear there was more evidence he did it than not, so they claimed he was insane. Despite his case for claiming insanity, the judge and jury didn't see it. It only took the jury 15 minutes to find him guilty for the murder of Fanny Adams. He was then given the death sentence. The day before he was executed, he wrote a friend hoping for God's forgiveness. On December 24th, Christmas Eve, Baker was hanged in front of a crowd of 5,000 people. This would actually be one of the last, and I think even the last, public hanging in Hampshire. All hangings after this would be private. until hanging was outlawed in the 1960s. Baker sent the Adams a letter saying he regretted what he did and begged for forgiveness. He claimed he was angry at her crying. He said she died without pain. The community would raise enough money for a gravestone for Fanny. She was buried in Alton Cemetery, with many present. Her gravestone is still there today. But this isn't where the story ends. In 1869, the British Navy started giving canned meat to eat to sailors. The sailors did not like it, and jokingly claimed it was human body parts rather than animal. This led to them to joke that they were the parts of Fanny Adams. Soon, all canned meat was named Fanny Adams. Over time, the phrase Sweet Fanny Adams came to be, which means something like nothing at all, or not a damn thing. So this phrase, meaning nothing, came from a joke of bad canned meat, because of the murder of a girl. Fanny's murder was one of the most brutal child murders ever to happen in the UK. And looking at it, people are right. This just wasn't a case of strangulation or stabbing in the chest. Fanny was chopped up. To add insult to injury, her name was made into a joke. I'm not sure if I've ever heard the phrase much myself. Maybe it's more British slang, but at least I don't think I have heard anyone say it. Fanny's murder happened at a time when stranger danger wasn't much a thing. If the girls had told sooner, or if the adults had acted sooner, would that have saved Fanny? Luckily, her murder was caught and punished. Many more cases possibly went unsolved due to limited technology and resources. Hopefully though, this video will give some insight to the term and the girl herself. So, did you know how the phrase was coined? When you found out, were you surprised about its origin? Just comment down below. Maybe Fanny had a short life, but her legacy lives on. Whether it's with the phrase or the girl herself, she will be remembered. So, Fanny isn't nothing. She's something. And maybe everything.